How are you?
Good, man. Thank you for joining me today. And this is my friend Kenny Garcia from New York City originally.
It's me.
And now we're in St. Petersburg, Florida. Stand-up comic, comedy club owner, all-around successful guy, man. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to talk to me, man.
My pleasure, Brian. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, podcast.
On your show.
Yeah. We met a couple years ago, and this is an interesting story that I think is kind of a helpful story to a lot of comics. Tough story on me, but it's a good story. We met 2 years ago in Kentucky, and if you could tell the story, that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a tough story for you personally. I don't see it that way. I hope that you don't. I actually think it's a great story for you. It really speaks to your resolve, not only as a comedian, but like as a person. When I share the story, I share it with like reverence for you. Like I don't share it as like a pushing down of you. I think of it as like the type of courage you need to be a comedian. And I guess like to give it some context, I'll just share the story. But basically, I met Brian while opening for Josh Wolf, who was a mutual friend of both of ours. And Brian was near Kentucky at the time. I believe you were living in Ohio.
Yeah.
And you came down to say what's up to Josh, and then Josh gave you some stage time on a pretty great show. It was like a sold out show for Josh, and it was a Friday night, and like you did very well. You did some material, and I was taken aback that Josh, was like a little disappointed that like he had seen the material from you from like a couple of years before, and he implored you to do new material, and he kind of like was like, hey, listen, these are my shows. If you want to come do the shows, I get it. But like you told me you wanted some stage time to get better, and I'm watching you do old shit.
Yeah.
So this is about doing, and it was like fun for me to hear it from Josh because like it's stuff that him and I had talked about a lot with him and I working together on the road, and it very much felt in line with the type of comedian and person that I know Josh to be.
Right.
And I also thought it spoke very highly of like your relationship with him. And that one, he was willing to give you like a guest set, but also two, willing like to give you like really tough constructive criticism. And I was like really impressed with like the way that you took it. But he said, hey, come back tomorrow night, but like I want you to do new material.
Yeah.
And it was like a lot of pressure to do that. It was just like, wow. I think maybe in his head he thought maybe you had been doing new stuff. Or I don't know what his expectation was, but like I think what he just wanted was for you to do stuff he hadn't heard before. And you came back the next night, and I think you just did brand new material.
I sat at the coffee shop all day, outlined this.
And what was fun about that was, I think as comedians, we all get very excited about new material. Like we love material that like really hits, and like we've honed it and it does really well. But I think what's really exciting is about, new material working and then trying it out. But I can remember being like, oh boy, like Brian's doing a brand new 10 minutes. And like a part of me like didn't believe you that you were doing the brand new 10 minutes, but like, you seemed pretty nervous about it, which I think is fun about new material. And you also seemed like excited to do it. And you went on stage. It was a sold out show. It was a pretty weird show. I like opened the show. And like a spider was coming down, and it was like all around just like a fun, weird show. And I think I had a pretty great set. And like we threw it to you, and like it just didn't go well. Like it was like it
was hard, dude.
It was fun to watch because in the short time that I knew you, you were like, I could tell you were very earnest and sincere and genuine. I could also tell that Josh really had a lot of admiration for you as a person and as a comedian. And one of the things that I always share with my friends is that, especially in comedy, like when you see your friend on stage, you want to see them do two things. You want to see them either do really well, or you want to see them do really poorly. And like, I think more oftentimes than not, if they're a really good friend, you want to see them bomb really hard because you just tell the story. And you bombed really hard. It was bad.
It was the heckling was the hardest part for me.
It was very like people were not on your side, but it was like really obvious that like, you just stuck to your convictions and you just accepted it. And you kind of just, instead of like acquiescing and pandering to them, or even like, more importantly, like panicking, you just kind of like sat in it. And, you just went with your stuff. You just were like, I'm here to like, I'm not here necessarily for you people. I'm here for myself to get better. And the only way to get better is to try this stuff. And I can remember being in the back with Josh, and we would thoroughly enjoy it not going well. That was like, that's always fun. Like, it was just like, how much worse can it get? And are you gonna dig out of it? Are you gonna cop out and just go to old shit just to get a laugh? Like, what are you gonna do? And you just stuck in there. And it was very, very courageous. It was just like, you just were like, I have an objective, and I'm just gonna drive. And I'm gonna, the notion of like plowing through something was like literally what you were doing. And I can remember being in the back with Josh, and it was his show. It's a sold out show. They're all his fans. And he's like a very unique comedian in that, like, he's so comfortable and confident in what he's doing on stage that almost what's happening before him is irrelevant. But he also wants and appreciates the amount of money that they've spent to see the show.
Right.
So I was like, and I know that about him, and I think you know that about him, and I was like, hey, do you want me to like say something about what happened and like give it some context? Or do you want me to like trash it? And he was like, nah, just like, just get it back on track, and then I'll give it context. And I thought that was like the best way to handle it, because it is his show. So I went on, I tried to like, because a part of your bomb that I think was the most fun was that like not only were the jokes not really landing it, but it was pretty divisive.
It was divisive.
And it was like opinionated, and it came from the heart. Like it was pretty authentic as to like how you felt, but it was very divisive.
Yes.
And you divided them, and I had to like get them back together. And I did. I was happy to do it. And then Josh went on stage and gave like just a very beautiful, 6-minute speech on the context of it. And he just really like kind of like, something that I really appreciated that night was that he just kind of like, opened up the curtain for like the casual comedy fan as to like what our process really is. And it was a very tangible way for like the crowd to like kind of see it firsthand. It was a very special night for the crowd, and like even for me, like it's something that I'll never forget, for like so many variety of reasons. And it's one of my favorite stories to share, just for like what I said earlier, like just having the courage, and that like more oftentimes than not, like a big part of being good at this is being vulnerable and transparent. And you were that in spades that night. Like, you just put it out there. And not only did you put it out there, you put it out there with like an opinion that you felt very strong about. And I just thought it was like very profound and like very like, beautiful. It was like basically the art. And like, to me, like the funny part will eventually come. And I've seen you do the jokes recently. And like you've made the jokes into jokes. Like they're jokes now. And they're also your opinions. And I think that like seeing that in that context of like literally trying something for the very first time in front of 250 people, where you're gonna divide the room, where that it might not go well, and then that's stand-up to me, and that's why I share the story with such reverence for you. Like it was like it's your part of the story, also Josh's part of the story, which I very much appreciate. Like Josh's part of the story to me includes the Friday night part.
Yeah.
And like I just thought all of it combined just made for like one of my favorite stories in comedy. And it's like I hope you know that I do like sharing the story.
No, I like it too. Yeah. I think it was a great story as far as him pushing me, because sometimes you need it. And what was funny to me too is when I'm leaving the stage, I'm sitting there like, man, am I gonna get my ass beat in the parking lot? Like people are hating me, right?
People mad.
And Josh come up to me and goes, awesome.
Yeah,
he gave me a fist back. I was like, wait a minute, but last night I had a good set in this, but then because he made me do that, then I was like, okay, why I got to do this, because I realized people getting bored of me doing the same thing after I know it works. You take it to the, you start getting your material down where every club you go to, okay, this will work.
Well, he said it really perfect and beautifully, like, and it's something that I kind of try to preach here now that we've opened up this place, is that, what are you doing stand-up for? Are you doing stand-up for ego and for the drug of the laugh, or are you doing it for the art of it? And that was something that like I've heard him talk about before, but we now had a tangible example in you where it just really all connected for me. It was like, hey, we all love to laugh. We are doing this to feed our egos to some extent, but there is something to honor the art of being a stand-up. And his thing to you was, hey, I've earned this crowd. You haven't. I'm giving you a gift.
Yeah.
So what are you, if you're going to use me, you know, for the things that I've earned, then I want you to pursue it the way that I love stand-up. And Josh loves stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he loves the art of being a stand-up, performing stand-up, and he wanted to make sure that you weren't taking advantage of that. And I think he knew that wasn't your intent on the Friday night show. But I think you and him had a conversation that I wasn't necessarily privy to, where you were saying, hey, can I get back out there? I'm trying to, you know, do stand-up again, or I'm trying to, you know, after COVID. And I think he felt like maybe you might be misleading him by, like, saying, hey, I want to do stand-up, but really what you wanted for that Friday night was just the rush of being on stage. And, like, we all want that rush of being on stage. And I think that it was cool that, like, one, he was, like, so cool with it, but also so willing to share how he felt about it, which is one of the things I really love about Josh, that he's just always willing to share and be protective of, like, the things that he's built and, like, the art of stand-up, which I think is, like, really admirable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man. Well, I was just glad to get back on, and but yeah, I think as a comic, a lot of times, like he was saying, you're more. I was more worried about doing well than getting better at that point. You know, like, okay, because you're in front of all those people. But then the next night after that happened, then that actually took a lot of weight off my chest, and ever since then, I feel like it's made me better, because it's kind of like going through like sometimes when a team loses, it's actually the best thing for him in a sport, right? You know, like during the season, a lot of times Tom Brady would lose during the season. He'd go, okay, that didn't work, but this worked.
You learn more from your mistakes almost.
But. Yeah, and so I appreciate him doing that for me and doing that as well. So before we wrap up, as far as what you're doing now, tell me a little bit about your club and what you're learning as you know, a comic and having your own show as well.
So for those who don't know about me, I was a touring stand-up comedian for 15 years, give or take, on the road, you know, for 40 weekends a year since like 2014. And I just got a little burnt out with it, amongst other things. I decided an opportunity became available to open up a comedy club 10 minutes from where I live. We're here now. It's Sunshine City Comedy Club.
It's beautiful.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We put a lot of work into it. It's very cozy and intimate. I think it's the environment that we've created here is very conducive to having great shows here.
Yeah.
If people show up.
Yeah.
And you know, it's been really fun, and a lot of, probably the thing that I've appreciated the most about this place was something that I didn't expect to happen, which was I've really enjoyed being a mentor to a certain extent of a lot of the younger comics. As a touring comic, the thing that I dreaded the most on the road was talking to like a young comic. You know, you always feel like they're very thirsty and they kind of want to just, you know, take stuff from you. And here, there's just a lot of really hungry comedians who want to get better. And I think that being in a position to help them has been like really rewarding for me, and I've really enjoyed that probably the most, along with making money. And but helping them and like just being a guide to a certain extent. Like I don't think it's necessarily my place to train them per se, like a boxing trainer, but just simply to be like the bumpers on a bowling alley. Like I can see at times where they're kind of going this way, and I feel there's a handful of them where I feel like I'm enjoying kind of bumping them back onto like a place where I think they should be going. Also giving them the freedom here to like explore as a comedian and try to find things that they're looking for with no real pressure. Like I don't have the big pressures of a giant club, you know. So like they can be a little bit freer here, and hopefully they take the skills that they're learning here and they bring it to like another club, and they just get better and better and better. And like that's been really fun and rewarding to be able to provide a space for that.
That's dope, man.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool.
What is this will be my final question for you. What's the number one kind of guidance that you feel you're giving or would give, you know, when a comic comes, you know, I'm wanting to get into the business, making it a business? I
say, I do have a token saying, I can remember, we've all heard it, every comedian has heard it. You ask another comedian for advice, they say the same thing. They say, you just gotta get on stage and you gotta write. And I think that's really frustrating to hear in the beginning, because you are so hungry, you are so earnest to try to get better, but there's really no more profound advice that a comedian can give you than that, because this is your own journey. And that being said, I've kind of subscribed to just two things as a comedian for my whole career, and I felt like if I was mindful of these two things, that the things that I think that I wanted from comedy I would get, because I didn't know necessarily what questions. You don't know what questions to ask of your career yet in the beginning. Like I think we all want to be big stars, but you don't. There's no real path to get there. Everybody has their own path, and I think if you concentrate on having fun and getting better at every show, and being mindful of when one or two of those things aren't happening at shows, like comedy makes you very self-aware. And if you could just pay attention to those two things, I think it just makes for a better journey of pursuing this. You know, just like, hey, did I have fun at the show? Did I get better? And I think that that's something that like was really profound for you that evening of like, hey, I was just here to have fun, which is great. There's so much room to just have fun. But I think you presented it as I wanted to get better.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things. And hopefully both of those things can happen at the same show. And yeah, I think that just if you're having fun and getting better and you're mindful of when those things are happening, but more importantly, when those things are not happening, then it'll really serve your comedy career.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Kenny, do you know what time it is?
I don't know what time.
It's Swinetime.
Oh, okay.
That's the end of the podcast.
All right.
Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate your time,
All right,
man.
brother, that was fun.
Yeah, thank you.